Hey guys, I'm Burt Firkins, King of the Bucket Squad and Twitch and ESO Stream Team Partner. You can catch me 5 nights a week at twitch.tv/BurtFirkins, and make sure to like, subscribe, and comment at the end of this video, or you can fire me into the sun. I'm not really super picky. Today I'm going to go over tanking tips to improve your tanking in the Elder Scrolls Online. I'm going to break down race, class, gear, and some general knowledge. So let's get this monkey business on the road. There are 10 races in the Elder Scrolls Online, and you can really use any of them to tank. However, there are some better than others. The top 3 races to tank with are going to be Nord, Imperial, or Argonian. Now you could be a Khajiit, you could be even an Orc, hell, you could be a Dark Elf, or even a Breton. But at the end of the day, the top 3 are going to be Nord, Imperial, and Argonian. Nords are best in slot due to their racial passives being geared directly towards tanking. Most important is Stalwart. Stalwart, when max, grants 1500 max stamina, and when you take damage, you generate 5 ultimate. This can occur every 10 seconds. Obviously, as a tank, you are taking constant damage, so your ultimate generation will be very good. Next passive is Rugged. When Rugged's max, it'll give you 3,960 increased physical and spell resistance. It's going to make you super survivable with those really hands-on bosses. This brings us to Imperial. Now, where Nords excel in damage mitigation, making you tankier, Imperials excel in resource management. Every passive at an Imperial's disposal helps with tanking, all 4 of them. First is Diplomat. Diplomat is great for newer players as it increases XP gained in the one hand and shield skill line. That helps you access important skills quicker. Also, it gives you 1% extra gold. Next up, Tough. Tough, when maxed out, grants you 2,000 more health, so you can take more of those owies. And you can always, and I repeat, always use more of that red resource. Next up to the plate is Imperial Metal. When maxed out, it grants you 2,000 max stamina, which is going to make holding block all of the time way easier. Last and absolutely not least is Red Diamond, baby. The heart and soul of men. Red Diamond, when maxed, is going to restore 333 health, mag, and stam when you deal direct damage with a 5-second cooldown. It's also going to reduce all abilities costs, including ultimate, by 3%. It's one of the best racial passives in the game, in my opinion. It is an absolute gem. Lastly, Argonian. Nords are tanky and Imperials manage resources well, so what do Argonians do well? Well, they are a very good balance of both. First useful tanking passive is Resourceful. When max, you are granted 1,000 max mag, and whenever you drink any type of potion, you restore 4,000 health, mag, and stam. Absolute resource beasts. Back to that super juicy red resource, and that's from Argonian Resistance. When max, you're immune to the disease status effect, and it gives you 2,310 poison and disease resistance, and 1,000 more max health. Argonians make good handbags, but make even better healers. So with Life Mender, when it's maxed out, your healing is increased by 6%, which makes getting trashed on less likely-ish. So to recap, Nords handle lots of damage, Imperials hoard resources, and Argonians have great resource and healing bursts. Before I go into classes, something to note is that no class in the Elder Scrolls Online has a class hard taunt or a way to aggro. I will cover those taunts and aggros in general knowledge later. Secondly, this is a general overview of these classes. Anticipate more videos in the future with in-depth breakdowns of each individual class. So, you can tank with any of the classes in ESO, but as with everything, there will be ones more ideal than others. The 4 best, in my personal opinion, would be Dragon Knight, Warden, Nightblade, and Necro. Those 4 are going to have all the tanking passives and abilities built right into their toolkit. The first and most people's choice in a tank class would be Dragon Knight. Almost everything in a DK's toolbox is useful for tanking. Their biggest sell is their survivability. With numerous amounts of shields and built-in mitigation, it makes them an immovable force. Those shields and mitigation skills include Spiked Armor, Obsidian Shield, Protective Scale, Green Dragon's Blood, and Magma, which is your ultimate. Group buffing is also in the repertoire, which is a very important thing to a tank to make sure your DPS are cranking out that damage. Your buffing skills for DK include Fiery Breath, Stone Fist, and Molten Weapons. Passives for DK are very important as well. They're going to add physical and spell resist, healing received, and resource recovery. Also many more. To sum it up, DKs are very survivable and have lots of offensive buffs, which is why they're the preferred tank class for most people. Speaking of preferred tank classes, let's get into mine, Warden. DKs excel in offensive group buffs, while Wardens are polar opposites. Get it? With defensive buffs. Wardens are basically Oprah. You get a buff, you get a buff, you get a buff, even you get a buff. You all get buffs. Wardens absorb big damage by healing through it, rather than mitigating through it. Wardens are basically hippies with how much they love trees and nature. Some of those nature skills to help you lightly mitigate damage and get juicy burst heals are Frost Cloak, Deceptive Predator, Crystallized Shield, Arctic Wind, Leeching Vines, and Enchanted Forest, which that would be your ultimate. Wardens only have one damage buff ability, however it is one of the best. Swarm applies minor vulnerability, which increases allied damage by 8% while active. So basically make it look like a beehive up in there. Passives are what make a Warden really shine. Their most important passive, Maturation, grants up to 12 people minor toughness, which gives everyone a bit more than 1,000 extra health. Seems pretty thoughtful. The Warden is the most well-rounded class of the bunch. With its light mitigation, burst heals, and group buffs, they definitely stand out as one of the best classes to tank with. Now it's no surprise attack. Alright, I'm just trying to say Nightblades make good tanks, okay? Jeez. Anywho, Nightblades aren't just sneaky, stabby thieves, they make one absolute fortress of a tank. The Nightblade solely survives on heavy mitigation with added heals over time. Nightblades have killer damage reduction. Just in mitigation skills alone, they have Grim Focus, Mirage, Summon Shade, an ultimate bolstering darkness, and a hybrid heal over time mitigation skill, Dark Cloak. Pair that with their heals over time Refreshing Path and Soul Tether, it's no secret how they can survive extremely damage heavy fights. Nightblades also have a group damage buff like Warden in Lotus Fan. It also provides minor vulnerability. While super useful, it is a channeled ability, so it is a bit clunky. Lastly, Nightblades also have a way to standalone generate resources. With Siphoning Strikes, you can choose to restore Stam or Mag depending on the morph you choose. I suggest Stam. With enormous mitigation and a little bit of everything in their toolkit, Nightblades make an excellent choice if you're looking to build a tank. Last but not least, Necromancer. Bones aren't the only thing they're going to raise. They're going to raise your interest in making a tank as well. Imagine you were baking a cake. Necro would be 1 part Warden, 1 part Nightblade, 1 part Dragon Knight, half part Templar, all with Necro's own unique spin on it. Basically a melting pot. God, I love that restaurant. Like Wardens, Necros have a great burst heal in Scythe that adds a heal over time just like Polar Wind. They also have unique heals over time in Mortal Coil, which also restores Stam, and a hybrid heal over time / mitigation skill, Spirit Guardian, which is similar to Nightblade's Dark Cloak, except this nerd stays out and alleviates some of the incoming damage. On top of that, they have a mitigation skill like Warden's Frost Cloak, called Bone Armor, that has a morph that allows you to chain adds in like a DK. However, this one does it automatically. That's not where the similarities to DK stop either. They have an ultimate, like DK's Magma, called Bone Goliath, which allows you to take an absolute beating. I mean, look how heckin' cool it be. But their standout ultimate is Frozen Colossus, which constitutes as their damage buff as it applies major vulnerability, giving your friendos 30% increased damage for 3 seconds. Another unique ability Necromancers have is Necrotic Potency, which like Templar's Repentance, it heals you off of corpses, but it grants you ultimate instead of stamina. Finally, the passives for Necro will also increase max health, restore resources, and mitigate damage. You take a little bit of something from each of these tanks, add in a little twist, and you could have a little Necro tank as a snack. So to recap, Dragon Knights are best in slot and most survivable, Wardens have defensive buffs like you read about, Nightblades are big strong, and Necros have a little bit of everything. That brings us to gear. Tanks should always have heaps of different sets at the ready depending on the situation they're put in. However, because there are so many sets that you should keep around as a tank, I'm going to go into basic, beginner, intermediate, and endgame sets. I'll also cover monster sets at the end. Beginner sets are going to be sets that are easily accessible. These sets are going to be overland sets that can be farmed or bought from a guild trader. Out of these sets, I will highlight the two I find most useful. Those two sets are Plague Doctor and Akaviri Dragon Guard. First, I'll highlight Plague Doctor. A 5-piece set of Plague Doctor is going to give 5,412 max health and 4% healing taken. That's going to equate to staying alive forehead. Second set in the pairing is Akaviri Dragon Guard. The set gives 129 mag recovery, another 4% healing taken, 1,206 more health, and if that wasn't enough, it reduces the cost of your ultimate by 15%. You'll be dropping ultimates until the Dwemer come home. Pairing these two sets together will make you extremely tanky and give you lots of ultimates to save the group, or save yourself. Psst, pick yourself. Totally kidding, but seriously. Intermediate sets are going to be the sets that'll put your training wheels on when it comes to helping the group. You'll become less selfish and more of a real support in the sense you are constantly buffing the group while still staying alive. The two best to use while learning this are Ebon Armory and Toryg's Pact. Ebon Armory, which drops out of Crypt of Hearts 1 and 2, gives you 2,400 health, 4% extra healing taken. But here's the kicker. It gives you and 11 others 1,000 extra health. Because it's not always about you, dude. Right? Next is Toryg's Pact. This is a 3-trait craftable gear set that will really help you increase your group's overall damage. Toryg's Pact grants 1,206 health, 1,487 armor, and it decreases the cooldown on your enchants and makes them 30% more potent. So start slapping those crusher enchants on those stabs, friendos. That's right, I said staff. I'll cover more of that in general knowledge later. The combination of these two sets is going to start you on the right path to really helping your group. Or losing Taunt and letting him die. Either's cool with me. Endgame, in my opinion, refers to Vet DLC dungeons, arenas, and trials, and their hard modes. The hardest of the hard. There are so many sets that you need to have as an endgame tank. Like, legit, my inventory looks like your granddad's old garage. There's probably a 57 Chevy in there somewhere. So that means I'm just going to cover two. The two best sets for main tanking pretty much anything in game are Claw of Yolnahkriin and Roar of Alkosh. These two sets maximize group DPS to their fullest extent. No joke, getting these two sets is an absolute game changer. Claw of Yolnahkriin drops from Sunspire, a trial in Northern Elsewhere. Yolna, as it's referred to, adds 1,206 max health. You gain minor Aegis at all times, reducing your damage taken from dungeon, trial, and arena monsters by 5%. It adds 1,096 max stamina, and when you taunt an enemy, basically doing your job, it grants you and 11 other group members minor courage for 15 seconds, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 129. Yolna comes in perfected and non-perfected. You are fine to use non-perfected until you get perfected. But the reason perfected is such a must-have is it adds 1,206 extra health, which in my opinion is too important to pass up. So go yell in Craglorn's zone chat. I'm sure you'll meet some fine people that will blame all of their deaths on you. Roar of Alkosh is the other set that you'll want to go along with your Yolna. Alkosh, as it were, drops from the Trial Maw of Lorkhaj and Reaper's March. Now, this is where it gets a bit weird. Alkosh is a medium set instead of heavy, like you would normally run on a tank. So that means you only want to run weapons and jewelry of it. Now with Alkosh, only the 5th set bonus is utilized as a tank. But it's so useful, nothing is better to use in its stead. That 5th set bonus allows you to reduce the physical and spell resistance of any enemy for 10 seconds after you hit a synergy. So start hitting those synergies like they're candy.
Ooh, piece of candy.
The pairing of these two sets helps make things die very quickly, so you don't have to try to stay alive as long. As if. Oh man, there's so many helpful monster sets in game. So what you wear will really come down to what content you're running and or personal preference. To name a few I personally use: Symphony of Blades, Thurvacun, Engine Guardian, and Mighty Chudan. Here are the ones I listed, plus a few more. I'll leave this up for a second so you can check the rest out. Last thing for gear that I'll sort of touch on has to do with antiquities and mythic items. There is a mythic chess piece called Bloodlord's Embrace, and this is how the tooltip reads on the chess piece. Dealing damage with a bash attack places a persistent uncleansable blood curse on an enemy. You can only have one blood cursed enemy at a time, and dealing additional bash damage moves the blood curse. Blocking an attack from a blood cursed enemy restores 1535 magicka to you. This effect can occur every 1 second. You would wear this chess piece in lieu of a monster set, either head or shoulders. This isn't really beginner, intermediate, or endgame gear. It's really just a good chess piece, and I wanted to touch on it separately. It's accessible to everyone as long as you're grinding those antiquities. Better get out there digging them holes, burning that wood, son. So that was gear. Alright. Here in general knowledge, I'll cover all the stuff I missed so far, such as taunts, blocking, basic skills, attributes, weapons, and uptimes. Let's get into taunts. Taunting is your sole purpose in life as a tank. You have two taunts as a tank, a melee taunt and a ranged taunt. Puncture is the melee taunt, and it's located in the one hand and shield skill line. Inner Fire, the ranged taunt, is located in the Undaunted skill line. Both can be morphed dependent on content that you're running and personal preference. Let's be honest, you're going to be too busy forgetting to use it anyway for it to even matter. Blocking seems easy enough, but it has its nuances just as anything does. Most people think perma-blocking is bad, but if you're learning to tank or if it makes you comfortable, go for it. It does come along with resource struggle, as you don't recover stam while blocking. Last little pointer is bar swapping and channeled abilities drop block, so don't get caught slipping, dude. Now we cover basic skills. Silver Legion Fighter's Guild, it's helpful on every class not named Dragon Knight, as Dragon Knights already have one. Balance is a Mage's Guild ability that turns health into magicka. It also grants major resolves, so you can replace bone armor or frost cloak, etc. with that instead to help with resources. Low Slash or Heroic Slash in the Sword and Board skill line provides reduced incoming damage, but also generates ultimate as well. Finally, your ultimate, Warhorn. Warhorn increases your group's max mag and stam, and increases everyone's critical damage by 15% for 10 seconds. Also make sure that you have all of your passives in class, one hand and shield, and heavy armor. Attributes. You can set up your attributes however is comfortable for you. However, I recommend having at least 18 to 20k mag, no more than 41k health, at least 21 to 25k stam. So play around with enchants and attributes. Go nuts, dude. I referenced going over weapons earlier in the video, and it's time to discuss weaponry. Tanks, 90% of them at least, use sword and board on the front bar. Back bar is where you'd find some indifference between double sword and board setups and ice staff back bars, etc. I'm here to tell you that neither of those are best in slot. Lightning staffs are the preferred back bar of most tanks. Like I said earlier, wall of elements from a lightning staff will cause enemies to be off balance, which is mucho damage. Ice staves are okay until you get your lightning staff or situationally. So that's right, swords and boards and lightning sticks. Finally, uptimes. If it has a timer on it, chances are it's important. So keep those uptimes on your buffs, heals over times, and etc. up as much as possible. If you're on PC, I recommend downloading Action Duration Reminder and Untaunted on Minion. So that will do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed all my high level tanking info. Also my really poor jokes. As I said before, you can catch me 5 nights a week at twitch.tv/BertFirkins. And like, subscribe, and comment on this video. And don't forget to get buckets. Later, Gators. Bye, 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 bye. Bones aren't the only thing they're going to raise. They're going to raise your interest in making a tank as well. Imagine you were baking a cake. Nekker would be 1 part Warden, 1 part Dragonite, half part Templar, all with Nekker's own unique spin on it. Basically a melting pot. God, I love that recipe.